Go ahead.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Duval City Council Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. It's now 5:33 in the afternoon, and I want to start just by thanking everybody on a 80-plus degree day to be here, and both city staff as well as council members. That's a big deal. There's such a commitment that all of you have made to our community, and I just like to recognize that, especially during this time with COVID-19 and families and uncertainties and everything else going on. I don't think we stop enough to say, boy, our lives are still turned upside down in many, many ways. So thank you for being here tonight. We have two key items. We're going to switch item 1 and 2 to be able to assist with the mayor's schedule. The first item we did have was department updates from administration, but we're going to remove that tonight. And instead, that'll be a COVID-19 update from Mayor Okerlander. And the second item, which we're now going to move to our first item, is introduction to Ogden Murphy Wallace. We're pleased to have Mr. Kinney with us tonight. Hi, Mayor. Welcome, Mayor.
How's it going?
Good. We're just beginning the meeting, so thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I will have to pop in and out of this one as I juggle kids in their virtual Taekwondo classes. So
yeah. Well, we have you as the second item to go over some COVID updates, if that works for you, Mayor.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, we'll go ahead. First of all, I think it's important to just recognize this is a huge item for us to be able to look at legal services contract. I had the opportunity to interview the companies, and boy, it seems like a long time ago now, but I was really impressed by Ogden Murphy Wallace, by the depth of experience they have, the number of attorneys that specialize in everything that the city of Duval has been looking for. But this is really our first opportunity for city council members to be able to meet Mr. Kinney, to be able to talk with him, to ask questions. Earlier today, we did receive a draft legal services contract. And for those of you that have had a chance to read it, it does have some minor changes, red lines in it, some of the selections on options that were available on the template. So all those things I think are fair game to be able to ask questions about and to get to know Mr. Kinney a little bit better. And if you don't mind, if you could just give us a little bit of your background, share anything you like, and then we can offer to see if council has questions.
Yeah, that would be great. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. A lot of nod of head. Well, thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm thrilled to be speaking with you tonight about Ogden Murphy Wallace and myself representing you as your city attorney. We have a whole breadth of experience as municipal attorneys that we're bringing to the table. As was mentioned, we have a group of municipal attorneys that represent a whole host of cities. In particular, the competition tonight with Monroe for who's going to get done first. We have an attorney out there right now as well. And I am the city attorney for both Mukilteo and the city of Gig Harbor. And so I have been in the municipal group here at Ogden Murphy for over 5 years and did municipal defense before that. And then before that was with a judge after law school. So I've been working for cities for quite some time and in a city attorney role for a number of years now. I worked with both Mukilteo and Gig Harbor for the entirety of my time here and have been their city attorney for running on 2 years now as well. So I'm very familiar with the issues that cities like yours face from a whole range of directions, whether that's planning or public works or really contracting, anything that may come up. And so I'm kind of used to the general city attorney practice of getting questions from the mayor, directors, city council on a range of issues and providing legal guidance to help be part of the team that's steering the city in a good direction. And I use the word team very intentionally because in all of the situations that I have, I work with a whole group of people at the city. and it's my goal to make sure that everybody gets the service from me, and everybody's marching down the same path. I also do a lot of specialty work with a whole host of different cities. For the last few years, it's been a lot of work in telecommunications for cities, of course. The rollout of 5G, small wireless facilities, has been something that's come in from the FCC with different orders. So we've been rewriting codes, drafting franchises, licenses, things like that to prepare cities for that new technology. Before that, the next in vogue thing was sign codes. So I did a number of presentations to different organizations on legal changes for sign codes, and have worked with a bunch of cities to revise codes to account for changes in law and that. So I try to balance my practice with my general municipal clients and then with specialty work for also municipal clients. So I've worked with probably 50 or 60 different cities throughout the state on different issues. And the same would be true for the rest of our team. We have longtime members of our firm that have been practicing for 35 years, and we have associates, and we all work together collaboratively to serve our clients. So we definitely feel like we have a lot of experience in municipal law at Ogden Murphy Wallace, and we bring a lot to the table, and we would be thrilled to do that for you all. So I think I can answer specific questions that you have. If there's any particular area that I've touched on that you want more information on, just let me know. But thrilled to be here having this conversation with you, and the opportunity to perhaps be your city attorney. I think you're muted, Councilmember Remington. Sorry.
No, thank you. I'll open it up to council members, but I did want to ask a question. One of the key things is transition for us. And we've been working closely with Madrona. I think you know Anne Marie Soto, and worked with her in the past. I had talked to Anne Marie, and she said, it's nice to have that kind of relationship so that you can just call each other and talk. Could you talk a little bit about transition and what you would like to see in terms of transitioning to be the city attorney?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And I think, it's important for me stepping into this situation to understand and fully appreciate that you have had a long relationship with Madrona and their firm prior to that, those attorneys. And they are great attorneys. And so, I would want to, use them as a resource in my transition with the city to make sure that I can hit the ground running just as quickly as possible. There is a little bit of a quick timeline here in terms of the end of their current contract and when I would get going. They have offered now multiple times to answer the call whenever I call, which should this happen. And I certainly appreciate that. I will need to be mindful of that. I don't want to take too much advantage of it, but at the same time, they've been very kind in offering insights into projects and the ability to reach out and ask questions. I'm going to have to defer to staff just a little bit in terms of really how much, necessary from them for a transition period. From my perspective, some overlap would definitely be useful. I think the more that we can, utilize, their momentum, on projects that they're currently working on and allow me to kind of phase into newer projects would be useful. But not everything there may or may not be feasible. And I don't have all of the intimate knowledge of the ongoing projects. I'm aware of a few, but I think I'd have to coordinate with staff on that.
Mm-hmm. Good. Council members, anyone have a question you'd like to ask Mr. Kinney? Councilmember Langle.
Yes. Well, we are looking forward to resolving any remaining issues on the contract and beginning work with you. I did have a chance to look at some of the edits in the contract. I didn't print it out. I thought it might be a little bit, I should maybe wait till the next round. But in one of the areas under scope of services, I think it was how you might have edited option 2. I just was a little confused about bond work. It looked like what you did there was you added a paragraph to an option So it wasn't all the same. It was a partial adjustment to that particular paragraph. But we don't have to go into those specific negotiations. I was just curious. The concepts in that particular option were bond work and prosecution, I believe. And so I just wondered if you could clarify some of that for me, because I know some law firms do bond work and some don't, and don't want to even pretend, but that they do, because it is so specialized. So if you could just kind of clarify that, do you do bond work? Do you do prosecutions? I wasn't quite sure. And I did look at your RFP response and I still was a little confused.
So very quick answer, do not do bond work and do not do criminal prosecution. And so
Okay.
if there was a revision that was not clear, or if there was something confusing on that, we'll absolutely clear that up, because that was not the intention.
So just to continue with the issue of bond work, because anytime, if we were to do something related to bond work, I would imagine, because of the size of your firm, you have coordinated with bond attorneys. And just so that everything is in sync between the municipal work we're otherwise doing. Is that a correct assumption?
I mean, yes, of course. We always coordinate with bond counsel. To be totally honest, most times there's a pretty clear deviation over
Right.
to the bond counsel. So I don't touch on that. There was a recent situation where a client of mine wanted to not collect some utility fees. There was a bond related to some of those facilities. And so we needed to make sure when we were drafting the ordinance to change the collection of those fees that it didn't impact some of the conditions or requirements of the bond for the
Yeah.
bond holders. So there was some coordination there. But as you aptly pointed out, you either do bond work or you don't do bond work. And
Right.
we do not. And we certainly will gladly defer to bond counsel to provide that sort of advice.
Okay, thanks. That answers that question.
Great. Thank you.
Other questions, council or mayor?
I have another one.
Dot, fire
I'm
away.
sorry. I'm into the
Not
legal
at all.
contracting stuff. I guess another question is, and I know that this is still a work in progress. So again, it's just for my information. In the draft that I received, indemnification language, you chose to eliminate what was in the template, but you also, in another section, said you were up for discussion in professional liability insurance. And I don't want to get into that specific, because that's really administration's job to talk through, but I just wanted to hear back, because of the template primarily, why was it that in the indemnification section you had, I saw your notes, but if you could embellish that a little bit more for our education on indemnification, that would be helpful.
Sure. So I think that gets into a little bit of a nuanced legal position that we have just for ourselves. But I would say that I talked to Laura about that language, and WCIA provided some additional indemnification language that they proposed as an alternative. I am
Okay.
fine with that language. And
Okay.
so there are two paragraphs that can be swapped in.
Okay.
I guess I'll just give the very quick rundown, and it'll be largely consistent with my comments in the draft. So much of what we do as attorneys touches so much of what the city does for work, that what we don't want is a situation where anything that happens with the city that they get sued for, if there was some legal advice that was provided in the scope of that project, that because that was provided, the city says, well, now you have to indemnify us because of that. And we don't want to be in that situation. We strongly, you have lots of opportunities, if we fall below our ethical standards, or if there's a professional malpractice issue there, you of course have that available to you. And that's why really any of the selections for the professional liability coverage, we have great coverage. And so you would have available to you kind of a different path rather than that path. So it's a slightly nuanced position, but there is language that was provided today that we can work with, and I think that that was just before the meeting. So that I presume if the city is comfortable with that language, may be passed along.
As a little bit of a follow-up on that, sometimes you're in a situation in a city or where you're needing to create a path, and so attorneys, can give you an idea of what your options might be. And let's say for a second that you have one option in particular that you think is strong. How does your firm approach letters of opinion?
Well, that's a great question, because when it comes down to it, that's our job, right? And that's why lawyers are called counselors or legal advisors.
Mm-hmm.
We provide, input and a risk assessment. And so pretty much any time that I provide paths forward, first of all, they're just options. The decision would lie with you all or with the mayor, depending on the situation. And my goal is to provide, a comprehensive opinion from the legal perspective on what the risks are for each. And then at that point, you all have the hard task of then choosing that path forward and having those different, and of course the same would be true with staff. If it's a planning issue, a public works issue, or a finance issue, you're going to get perspectives from the directors, you're going to get perspectives from legal counsel to provide, the context of each of those paths. And then you select that forward. But my goal is to always provide a comprehensive understanding of what I see as those legal risks. So if you do move forward, you can see, potential pitfalls or potentially a smoother path.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Naplin, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you so much. So my question for you has to do with the associates that may be assigned to our city, and I just would like to learn a little bit more about them and how you coordinate work between them and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have associates in our firm that are fantastic resources. They're really great attorneys. And the way that we typically work with them is on a project basis. So Emily Miner, who's an associate dedicated entirely to the municipal group, would be the dedicated backup. And what that means is, for the kind of the regular interactions with the city, that would be the person that you would see the most. If by chance I'm sick or something like that and can't make it to a meeting, I would coordinate with staff to get Emily in that seat for that meeting. Of course, we have remote meetings, so it makes it a lot easier to adjust to life as things come up. But yeah, it really is on a project basis, really, in finding the person that fits that project and has the availability in that moment to work on something. And we have associates that have different specialties that they're trying to grow. For example, we have one associate that does a lot of Public Records Act questions. So, hey, we got this request. We think these exemptions apply. We need to analyze the records to see, where the redactions may lie. We've got somebody that does a lot of that. So we can plug that person in there. If we've got a land use appeal that's going to the hearing examiner that needs a little bit of legal briefing done for it or something like that, we've got somebody that works on that. And so our team of associates in the municipal group is not huge. It's probably maybe 4 or 5 at the most. So we really try to integrate those individuals into the group. And to be totally honest, the same is true with our members. We have members that have specialties that they've built over their entire careers. And so, I'm definitely in a position where if I see an issue that relates to something that somebody else just dealt with at a neighboring jurisdiction that we service, I'm going to go consult with them and make sure that, we've got a clear path forward for the city that finds all those potential pitfalls and finds that smooth path that we can provide to you. So we utilize our collective experience and knowledge for the benefit of you, the client.
Thank you. So the point of contact will always start with you, and then you help coordinate if there's someone that you would like to pass it on to.
Yes, exactly. So I would be the point of contact. I would take all of those projects, and to the extent that I need help or see an opening for somebody, I would do that. The only thing I would say is that there could be a project that is large enough that maybe that person would become the point of contact for that project. And so I'm thinking, there's a piece of litigation that somebody, is a land use litigator, we're going to plug them in. I would then take a step back from that, let them be the lead. I would always be there to, make sure that I understand where it's at and how it's moving forward. Because the reality is when I come to you all in city council meetings or in emails or wherever that communication may be, I really do kind of need to know most everything, at least to some level, to make sure that I can answer those questions on the fly to the best that I can. So it's kind of a balancing.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hoag, thank you. I see you got your virtual hand up.
I did. So I just have a question for you. Looking at the contract on the first page, and I know this contract probably initially came to, we're the ones that initially worked on this contract. So, but now that it's, we're plugging names in, I feel like the last paragraph on the first page isn't really clear. That would you be the one attending our council meetings on a regular basis, or would it be Emily Minor?
It would be me.
You. Okay.
Yeah, and to the extent that we should put a clarification there, happy to do that.
Okay. It just, yeah, the verbiage just kind of didn't make it clear to me. So thank you. And I appreciate when you mentioned that that the city's responsible for, maintaining our costs and keeping and you're not, going to put the brakes on, that it's our responsibility. So it would be really nice if we could get some advice on how to do that as a council. And because it seems like we don't find out that our bills are almost at our limit until, they're there. And it's like, so is there, I don't know how to track expenditures, and if there's a better way to do it, it would be really nice. Did you have
I think the mayor.
Yeah, well, one of the things that will be happening going forward is that council contact versus administrative contact will be separated, because primarily all of administrative contact is related to the day-to-day operations of the city. So that's one thing that's going to happen. I know I've talked to several folks about it in the past couple of years regarding budget, is that council has lots of stuff it wants to do. And I think over the last 2 months, it's been close to 20,000, if I'm recalling the numbers correctly, as far as council specific use of legal services. And my preference and what I'm likely to do in the budget is work with the mayor pro tem to determine a specific amount for council and what council feels they need for the biennium, and then plug in what we need for the administration. That said, this is a year where there has been no way to predict what expenses would be due to all of the storms and the pandemic and all of the rapid continuous changes to policy that we have to do and don't have a choice on. And then I'll let Dan fill in on that. Just from the administrative perspective, that's what we're looking at.
Okay. I see that Laura Thomas has a comment as well. Laura?
So thank you, Mayor and Council. So this was an item that we talked about internally. And so what we're proposing is that when we get within about 80% of the budget, we'll make sure that we make contact with Council. But what we'd also like to do is provide a general written report every month that just shows where we're at on an ongoing basis. Obviously, this last biennium has been challenging because we have used more attorney services for just various reasons. And community development's one of those reasons. We just have a lot of projects in, so we've utilized those services quite a bit. So we want to make sure that, again, that we're actually looking at our invoices in a different way. And we actually talked to Daniel about this recently in one of our most recent conversations. And so we're gonna, like the mayor said, we're gonna bucket them by department, and we'll also have what's billable versus not billable, just so it's also easier for us to administer this contract as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hope.
I really appreciate that, Mayor. I think that if the council had its own, bucket in the funds available in the biennium, I think that would be helpful to us. Because then we could prioritize, and so thank you.
Yeah, no, that it just makes sense too. And when we're talking about legal costs, especially, we need to be able to see clearly where the costs are coming from, because if there's, we have had situations in the past. A few years ago, Councilmember Brednicki was Mayor Pro Tem at the time, where we had a single council member running up bills of $5,000 a month. And so that was pretty challenging, to say the least. And so that puts, and we as administration should not be determining how much legal service you use. You need to determine that and police it on your own as a separate entity, as a legislative body.
So I'll just very quickly chime in. I think that kind of got to the heart of the question, and I think that that's a great solution. And to the extent that I can help facilitate these things by making sure that our invoices are in those buckets, we have the capability of doing that. And so we can break things out as desired. That'll be by department. And then if there's those larger projects, we can even pull those aside so we can track those. And then of course, on my side, I view it as my responsibility to be, efficient and accurate in my work. So, it's not all on the city to watch those budgets. It's certainly on me as well, but I can never be in a position to pick and choose between different people to do work because it's going to add up or whatever. That's just not something that I want to, get in the middle of. But at the same time, I do have responsibilities to be efficient and to make sure that you're getting, quality work at a good, consumption rate.
Well, good questions. Well, Mr. Kenney, I've got a couple more. One that popped up was just about capacity. We understand that this came up pretty quickly for you as a law firm. So thank you for continuing to consider serving us. I think original applications were clear back in January or February. So it's been months. So we really appreciate your being here and offering to provide service. So one of my questions with this is about capacity. We understand that currently, because you plan out your day, and maybe we haven't done as well with that, but we do have negotiations, and it sounds like we will be having a different firm handle negotiations for now. Do you know when that capacity might open up? Are we talking 6 months, a year, or the life of this contract? Any idea on that?
That's a great question. For those labor negotiations, we do have 2 or 3 attorneys, well, 3 attorneys that were interested in it, but given the quick timeline for this particular round, didn't make a whole lot of sense, or they just didn't have availability. So I would envision that perhaps the next time those types of discussions come up, we might be able to have availability. The employment side of things from a non-labor perspective, but more employment law focused, we have attorneys with availability now. And so my general thought would be once those labor negotiations are complete, and again, up to the city, up to the mayor, up to council on how you want to do it. But we do have labor attorneys that can work with the city, kind of moving beyond those negotiations. And then to the extent that we're able to integrate in the labor side of things after this wave right now, we would certainly be interested in that and would talk with you all about that.
Well, thank you for that. I always like the Bible when it says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. I guess what I appreciate is that up front, just saying, hey, we don't have capacity right now, but, we'll work on that. And probably I won't say the bigger side, but a key importance is there are a lot of other HR employment law issues that come up. And I'm glad that you're able to work with us on those. Another question I had, and this is a fairly simple one. The contract talks about 1 meeting per month for city council. We obviously have 2 council meetings. Is that something you have capacity for, to be able to make 2 council meetings a month if we need that?
Yeah, yes. So in our kind of initial discussions, once I got kind of folded back into the loop, my understanding is that it could be up to the 2 council meetings a month, and perhaps even a committee meeting or 2 during the month as well. And my availability on Tuesdays is open. I'm booked on Monday nights, but Tuesday, that's why it worked for the RFP. So yes, I think that's great. And, the efficiencies and the ease of joining council meetings remotely, particularly right now, makes that even easier. And also efficient for your pocketbook. So, I'm happy to participate in whichever meetings make sense. I think there may be some question on when those committee meetings are and scheduling those, but I think that we can work through that fairly easily.
Thank you. We're working through our own thought process on how often to have an attorney present. Our past practice is just every council meeting, but it may be that we don't need to have you there every meeting, and that if we have a question, we just simply call and ask, not during the meeting, but later, and say, hey, here's a question that came up. I hope we're not in such a hurry that we always have to have you ready to answer a question immediately with no advanced warning and be able to move on. So we're just working through that ourselves, and hopefully together we can find a balance with that. But I'm glad you're available on Tuesdays for us if needed. Council members, any other questions for Mr. Kenny? Not seeing any hands up right now. I had considered whether or not we wanted to move this onto the council agenda tonight, but it looks like there's enough questions and enough little loose ends that we need to take this additional week and bring it back on the 28th. In general, is that what council would like to do versus trying to do something tonight? I guess I asked 2 questions. Is there anyone that would like to bring it forward to this evening? I'll ask it that way. I don't see any, so I think that means we just need to have more time for some questions and for the mayor and staff to work with Mr. Kinney and Ogden Murphy Wallace to work out those last details on a contract, and then we can look at it hopefully on the 28th. I will say, by the way, if you have not contacted Jody to let her know your availability on the 28th, we're just confirming that we have a quorum for that evening. So if you have not done that, please contact Jody. You can just simply send her an email and let her know if you're available. So looking one more
I've heard
time.
from enough people, we do have a quorum, Mr. Remington.
So we do.
Yeah.
All righty. You want to give names of people that didn't no. Laura, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, and this is kind of just the logistics part. So I was able to send out 3 emails to council today. I apologize that they came in 3 different emails, but we were just trying to make sure that we got information to you. So your first email was a draft of the contract. Your second email was the financial piece of it. So what we did is we looked at where we're at to date, and then we looked at 2017 through today, looked at the average hours, and then estimated what that would look like costing essentially over the next year and a half. And then a third email was after we'd received comments from WCA on the indemnification, and I sent that first to Daniel earlier, and he got back to me right away. And so then they're okay with that language. So I think we're getting there. But what I would ask council is, as you're reviewing that over the next couple of days, is respond back to it can be either, you know, to Dana, the mayor, and I, or just one of us, however you want to do. But I think probably to Dana and I for now, and then we can share with the mayor in one larger meeting. And then we'll go through any of those, and then we'll, if there are any suggested changes, then we'll set up a final meeting maybe on hopefully Friday or late Thursday with Mr. Kenny. Okay, thank
That
you.
sounds good. Laura, thank you. Jody, you have input?
I just wanted to confirm, we originally set the meeting for 5:30, and I just want to confirm that that time works for everybody, unless you wanted to start it at 5. For some reason, I have my times mixed up. So as of right now, it's set for 5:30. I just want to kind of get a head nod that that time works for everybody, especially Mr. Kenny. Okay.
It looks like it. I don't see any nays. So 5:30 it is, Jody?
That's what I have it set right now, unless it looks like Dot has a question or comment on that, maybe. You're muted. So
Yeah, Dot, go ahead.
you're muted.
There it goes. Okay, so for the meeting on the 28th, there's a couple things on tonight's agenda that, depending on how much progress we make tonight, or I think in between all of this, maybe Dana can correct me because I might be having a mind moment. It's, if I'm remembering right, we might have an opportunity for F&A to look at a couple of things that might still be in flux in tonight's agenda. And if we get where we are comfortable, could potentially have more of a recommendation to the meeting on the 28th. And I just wanted to touch base with you, Jody, to find out, like, I know we have a notification issue.
Right.
So if tonight we decide that there's a couple other things we want on that agenda, are we still fine on notification?
Yeah, I have not sent the notice to legals yet. I have to send it absolutely no later than like noon on no, let me see, hold on. I'm looking at my cheat sheet over here. Yeah, noon on Thursday is the very, very latest that I can send it to legals. And that would be published on Monday. I like a little bit more leeway, so I prefer to send it out tomorrow. I think we might have a pretty good idea by the end of tonight. We can always remove items from the special agenda. We just can't add items to take action on if it's not in the notice. So I think by the end of tonight, we'll have a much better idea, and I will notice accordingly.
Yeah, that sounds great, because as long as, I mean, I thought I was remembering correctly that we could pull things off the special meeting agenda. And we do want to keep a couple things moving along as best as possible. You know, some might be able to wait for another regular council meeting. Maybe there's a reason to do something else more quickly. So just wanted to know our options. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Last time, any questions for council for Mr. Kenny? All right, well, Mr. Kenny, you're welcome to stay. I do want to personally thank you. We had been with our previous law firm for over 20 years, Kenny Deason, and certainly with Madrona. Several of us have had an opportunity to talk to Anne Marie and other attorneys with the group just to thank them. And every now and then you get to a point where you're ready to have someone new come in and provide fresh perspectives. And assuming that all this comes together, and I don't have any reason to believe it won't, it's so healthy to have an attorney that is open to be able to look at things with a fresh set of eyes and provide perspective for us all. We certainly don't mind, you know, at times if you disagree with the direction. I know you're just providing options for us, but it really is important that we work and build that relationship, and I'm excited about it. As well as with Emily, I had a chance to, she was there at the interview as well, and I look forward to working with her. So if you'll thank the firm for us and Emily personally, and we look forward to this next week and seeing you on the 28th.
That's wonderful. And thank you so much for this opportunity to see you all remotely in person, however this new world works. And, we're thrilled about the opportunity. And like I said, certainly appreciate that it is a moment of some change for you all in your legal services. But, we're good friends with everybody over at Madrona. So we certainly respect them. We know that you've been in good hands with them. And, we hope to just continue that forward for a good time to come. So we're looking forward to working with you and talking with you on the 28th, and hope this comes together.
Great. Well, thank you and have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you so much. See you all later.
Well, I think we're ready to move on to our next item.
Laura, you have your hand up. Is that current? Okay.
It was, and it wasn't necessary when Daniel was on, but we don't technically have a Finance Administration Committee meeting scheduled between now and the next council meeting, and we're going to try to get our packet out on Friday. So based on, I guess maybe just our council meeting this evening, if it looks like we're going to need some, like I'll just say a new meeting, then we'll just need to know that tonight so that we can try and schedule something between tomorrow and Thursday. That was really it. Thank you.
Dot?
Yeah, on that point, what also can happen, I think that to be better coordinated, because I always feel like council needs to do some of their own homework here and then communicate with staff on it, and the mayor, of course, is, it might be too that, if there's nuances that we want to hash out, we try to hash them out and then touch base. Mayor, you decide how you want that touch base to look. But touch base with, the mayor. I realize there's availability, respect that we have to have there. And, but so subject to what the mayor wants us to do on that communication. I mean, it may be something that everybody wants to welcome, because in a couple of these things, I just personally, I'm just really hoping we can get strategies that celebrate the priorities that have been put forward by the mayor and come up with some really simple ways to achieve what she wants us to achieve. And because I very much worry about all the impacts. We have so many things going on with our employees, and if we can get a little more efficient ourselves, I guess, on the council side, or get our thoughts more streamlined, I'm hoping we can do that, make it easy, not harder.
Yeah, and to that point, the reality is we have to have a contract approved by the 28th, or else we do not have legal services as of August 1st.
Oh, I wasn't talking about legal services.
Oh, I thought you were referring to that.
No.
Okay.
I think
that's where Laura was at, and so.
No. I wasn't talking about legal services. Point of clarification, quickly.
Okay.
Quickly. I mean, I think I've already, given Laura my one last comment on that contract already. I mean, I'm on it. No, I wasn't talking about that. We have a couple other proposals that are before us tonight, and I think it's, we need to figure them out, particularly the one related to the COVID stuff. And I'm anxious to hear what you have to say on that. But we've got to move on that pretty fast.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Dot.
Well said, Dot. Thank you so much. Well, Mayor, I think we're ready to move on to our next item, which is the COVID-19 update.
Yeah, so Mr. Tozer sent the written report out to everyone, and I don't know if anyone from this group was on the city-county call with the governor's office and Department of Health yesterday, but we continue to see the numbers in King County stay way higher than expected. It's happening across the state. I think any of us that have been out and about across the state realize traffic is pretty much back to normal again. Just talked to somebody earlier today that, saw people walking into our local stores without masks. And we're really at a point where if things don't change and change quickly, I have no doubt that we're going back to 1.5 or phase 1. And if that happens, I suspect it'll be by August 1st. So I just want to encourage everybody to do what you can within your own circles with whatever personal or professional influence you have to get people to take this seriously. I know that many families have their quarantine bubble, but those that don't have their quarantine bubble and are willy-nilly going out to eat and on a regular basis and putting others and themselves at risk is really what's jeopardizing our economy at this point. And it is really, really serious. The key message that really shocked a lot of us on the call yesterday was being told that right now we're 3 weeks behind where Florida was 3 weeks ago. And that should be sobering to our community. And we've also seen our community transmission rate rise. After more than a month of not having any new cases, we've nearly doubled. And as we all know, it's affected our city family as well. And we need to, I think, do everything we can to make sure that we don't get to that point if it can be stopped in the next week. Do everything we can to make sure that the economy stays open, because our small businesses, if they have to shut down their doors again, I don't know what's going to happen for a lot of folks. In other parts of the state, you're seeing businesses close left and right. And, for our long-term recovery, our country has to get this under control. And you hear time and time again in conversations that there is no national leadership. And I really believe, based on what I've seen online, that that's a huge reason why we're not moving forward as other countries have been able to. We're the only one in our situation at this point. And frankly, I don't feel like there's any excuse for it. So yes, a little bit of personal opinion in there, but also as, the leader of the city and as you as leaders as well, we're really at a tipping point and a critical point, and I don't want to get to the point of no return for us. Even if our numbers stay small, it's going to dramatically impact our community if we have to go backwards. So, I mean, that's basically it. We won't know until basically the governor announces it. But he's had enough meetings with folks recently that I feel that it's very, very close and it follows the patterns of before. And I think that this last conference was the last warning shot, in my gut opinion, without having any data from within the office. So that's all I have. I know it's not great news, but at this point, North Shore did announce today they're doing distance learning for the year, and a lot of us parents are looking at how do we school our children, work full time. It was hard enough for a few months, and there isn't any childcare. So it's a really serious situation, and that's another component of knocking this down, is making it so that it's safe for people to get back to school and safe for the teachers and staff primarily. So that's all I have. It's not a huge update. And of course, I've been dealing with some family issues the last several days, so wasn't able to pull together their admin update. So I apologize for that, but should be able to get that done for the next meeting.
Mayor, thank you. I appreciate your telling it like it is. That really is helpful. A pulmonologist I've known for 20 years just today had commented that we're probably a year away from what some folks would say we feel like we're getting back to normal. I think Dr. Fauci said that likely by January they'll start with a vaccine, but that'll go to the most vulnerable, which means there'll be probably about 250 million of us that won't see it in January. So some of this is just perspective and recognizing that the length of time we've been dealing with COVID-19, just till a vaccine's even available, is double the amount of time that we've already had. So this is going to be a long haul for us. And I think we need to be patient. Everybody assesses risk differently in the community, and I appreciate that, depending on your own situation. And for some people, it's age and all kinds of things. So I think that the more we can encourage folks, this virus doesn't have wings, it doesn't drive a car, it's human behavior that allows it to spread. And until we take that seriously, we're going to continue to see these outbreaks and all the things associated with it. I also just want to recognize for parents, I can't think of a more challenging time with your precious young ones at any age really, not knowing what is going to happen with school and learning and the consistency and the discipline that education brings, all the things that go with it, friendships, sports, music, all the things that are encompassed by education. And I think it's incumbent on us as council members to just recognize that many in our community are continuing to struggle and are looking for any kind of relief. And so rather than be too negative, I like to also be encouraging. Our country has been through wars and famines to some degree. When I think of the Depression, and although I didn't go through it, but we've been through tough times. And I think that's where America pulls together. A lot of uncertainties, and just that uncertainty creates a lot of stress in life. And I encourage all folks that may be listening to consider mental health options as well. It's, if you hurt break a bone, you don't hesitate to go and get it taken care of. But that's true of ourselves emotionally and mentally as well, to be healthy. And those options are out there. And many folks that have never used those before, including children, need those options now, just to be able to try to understand and be encouraged and work through a lot of their emotions. Laura, I see
And
you've
to
got your...
Councilmember Remington's...
Go ahead,
Oh,
Mayor.
I was going to say to Mayor Pro Tem Remington's point as well is, I have a close family member in the hospital undergoing open heart surgery tomorrow, and only one person's allowed to visit, period. And once you switch that person out, they can't see anybody else. And so that's going to be someone in the hospital without COVID for at least a month, without access to face-to-face contact with family. I have friends undergoing chemotherapy right now who can't take their spouses. Women having babies that are lucky if their spouses can be in the room. And so it goes far beyond whether you get a cold or whether you get a flu or whether you get sick for a week. It's impacting the day-to-day normal things that you expect to be able to experience with your family. And that creates a heck of a lot more trauma that can be life-lasting, as well as sadness and grief when you don't get to say goodbye to your loved ones. So it's not a joke. It's not political. This is real life and serious. So if anybody is listening, I just really feel strongly and hope people take it seriously.
Amy McHenry.
Mayor, I was just curious. I had been hearing more and more about testing wastewater in other states that started as an early warning sign of a rise in COVID cases. And I've heard it's actually very cheap to do. I had no idea if that was a potential on our radar or if we're just going to continue to rely on local testing.
Well, first of all, the good news is we've only had 24 cases in the city limits of Duval. I don't know if testing would actually be able to capture that in a city of 8,000, but I am aware of it. Frankly, we just have not had the capacity to look into it at this point. We'll get there, and I think long-term, especially if the vaccine is only temporarily effective and what have you, if we can add that onto our protocol, it's probably something that we will do. But right now, there's been so much focus on trying to get all of our protocols in place that we haven't been able to focus on those types of issues yet. But I have read some great studies about it, and it's really fascinating. But there's also evidence that you might have some early detection, but at the same time, your body sheds the virus for sometimes weeks or months after you've had it. So it could also be some false reagents too. So we have to be careful, but it could be a really good tool. And when we have the capacity, we'll be looking into it.
Okay.
Good question. Laura?
So since we're talking about COVID in general, I was going to talk a little bit about this at our admin meeting, but this is a specific piece that I'll share now. So because cases have gone up and we have had at least one employee be positive for COVID, we have relooked at our internal COVID procedures as well. So for example, our city hall is going to a Monday, Tuesday shift and a Thursday, Friday shift, and Wednesday is a clean day. And we chose to do this because our teams are very small and we want to make sure that we can bring in money, deposit money, pay bills, and do other parts of business. So we started that this week. So Monday was our first day. Stay tuned. I'm not sure how long we'll have to do this, but as cases rise, I think it is a really good decision. And then our other teams and our other buildings are coming up. Like each building is looking at it potentially a little bit differently. The other thing that we mandated across the board, across all departments, is that if there's more than one person in the building, then everybody wear masks, even if they're in their own office and the door is closed. So that's what we're doing. I can say thank you for council members that have checked in with me. As you know, I'm recovering from the virus, and if any of you are interested in my story, I would definitely be willing to talk to you, because it was a very disappointing experience with the healthcare system and how long it took for me to get my diagnosis. It was 9 days, which does not allow for contact tracing. I have a really small group, so we deployed out. Jeff did right away to anybody that I had been in contact with, any businesses that I had been in contact with. And then I can tell you the State Department of Health took another probably 4 days after that diagnosis, or after I was positive, to make a contact with me. And those surveys are voluntarily, and it honestly, it felt like they weren't really interested in having that conversation with me. I was really surprised. I kept saying, well, you don't really have to do this unless you want to. And then last Friday, I received a form from the Snohomish County Health District saying, please call in. And here I am. It's almost like 16, 18 days past my diagnosis, and I still have yet to hear from them. So I think that says a lot about where we're at as a state and as a nation. And so I would say my message to you is to button down the hatches and watch your circles, because my social circle was pretty small. And I was still able to get it. Luckily I didn't bring it forward to my work group or any of my other family members, but I will definitely be an advocate. I actually am going to be meeting with the Snohomish County executive, because I want to share my story, and I'm going to be meeting with the director of Snohomish Health as well. And I'm going to tell it to anybody that will listen to it, because, as a professional in the field that does emergency management, it scares me that what my experience was. And anyway, I wanted to share that with you and anybody that's listening, because that should be concerning to all of us. And Washington State is supposed to be a leader, and I have not honestly seen that at this point. Thank you.
Laura, thank you for sharing that. It really personalizes it for all of us that, for some may not know anyone that's had it, but for everybody I've talked to that have gotten it, they just said, this is not something you want to mess around with. It can be pretty frightening. Councilmember Brudnicki, you have your real hand up.
Yeah, I think as a business owner, I'm a bit confused, because I know that I can have, I think, 5 people in my business under the current phase. And, we have things scheduled coming in August, which we've moved outdoors. But even then, if we're in phase 2, I'm confused as to, is it still 5 people in the outdoor situation? And then, you got to figure as a school, we have a whole schedule for fall. And I'm so frustrated with the non-information on all levels, especially from our federal government, that I'm at the point where, as far as the school goes, I'm ready to just shut down till next September. I can't deal with the stress of not knowing what I'm supposed to do. It's so confusing. And it's very difficult for businesses, because if you're sending out information to your clients, and then all of a sudden the state or somebody says, oh, no, don't do this, don't do that, wear this, don't wear that. Trying to get that information out as fast as possible to folks is really challenging. I mean, we had a challenge with masks where some of my clients said, if you make me wear a mask, it's a deal breaker. So, what are you supposed to do about that? And so I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do as a business owner because I don't know phase 3. Is that ever, I kind of gave up on phase 3. So do we look to the state? Are we waiting for the state? Certainly not the federal.
Well, Diane, thanks. A very personal part of your real life. And I think many in our community, especially our business community, are going to relate to just what you're saying. It's really tough. School is one of the big ones now. And of course, you work directly with education, and it's a challenge when you don't know. And I think people are just simply trying to work through. You can go to the state website, the county, and even our own city website has a lot of links, but it's the unknown that hasn't been decided yet. And we keep hearing about, many of the schools around us. I think Kirkland and several others have already said they're just going to have, divide things up so that some students will have a couple of days a week that are virtual classroom, and then they'll switch over and come into the classroom. But all that's being worked on. So it's hard to know. And it's the uncertainty that causes that stress you talked about. And by the way, that's a very normal reaction for people. Most of us like to plan our lives out. And when you can't do it and it involves your work and your children, and that's tough. Diane?
I think what is so stressful is, I can't go by the schools because I'm a private business, so I'm not under that sort of guideline.
Mm-hmm.
If they say us businesses can only have 5 people, then it doesn't matter. But I think the confusion of the information that's out there is just, you don't know what to do as a business person. And then when my thought is I've canceled our art show 3 times, restructured it 3 times. But now I'm thinking, well, if I do hold this event, will somebody from the city come after me if we're in phase 2 and I should have 5 people and I did not measure out 6 feet? I'm trying to figure out, how do I measure? What if 50 people want to show up and do I need to contact? You know what I'm saying? And I don't think this is just me. I think this is sort of a situation with a lot of businesses. You need to protect yourself. It could be a liability. I mean, these are all the things we are thinking about as business owners. Huge liability, and so there's, I don't know, they're like, open up your business, and I'm like, I will. You all get on board and we can, let's put it this way. If we went into phase 3, I wouldn't open my business till I observed for a good month that phase 3 was working. That's kind of my philosophy at this point, because it's not worth getting this. So in consideration for our businesses locally, that's, I don't know what everybody's going through, but I can tell you as a business owner, it's, I don't know, we may be looking at a new job next year.
Well, Diane, thank you for your insight and sharing with us. Are there any questions for the mayor? Councilmember Lingle.
Yes, I have a question for the mayor, and then just a comment, hopefully supporting her philosophy. The first is just a statement, because my son is an essential worker at Fred Hutch. He has been insisting for weeks and weeks that my husband and I get tested. Now, we don't have any symptoms, and all that kind of thing. But his reasoning was that it's not just testing, and masks, it's also tracing. And so by going through the testing process, we help establish a track if there's future tracing needs in King County. And so we did decide to do that. And I don't know how many people realize that Duval Family Drugs is an approved testing site. And we did not have any trouble getting an appointment. I think 2 days notice and we got appointments to go. And it wasn't painful. It wasn't scary. They really had a great system. So I'll put in a public service announcement on that. But really the main thing I wanted to ask is, Mayor, you've got a lot going on. What can we do to help you on this issue? Because I recognize that this is very heavy to carry as an executive, and maybe there's something council should be doing to help you. And I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to put that out there.
I think honestly that I think continuing doing the best that council can to give us space to work on all of these pandemic related issues is critical right now. We've had a lot of things keep cropping up that have gotten in the way of getting things done, and they're all things that need to get done and all well intentioned, but that has definitely created a significant amount of stress on our staff. And I think, honestly, continuing every time you see, I know Councilmember Henry does a great job with her council page. Every time she sees something, she reposts it to her groups, and continuing to talk to people. And I think, in general, any information you get that's new, share it with us. But we're kind of settled in for the long haul right now. And once we get the grant funding done, I don't know if there will be other rounds, but we'll have all of those mechanisms in place and it'll get easier. But really it's a matter of, if there's something that's not a deal breaker on a policy, move the policy forward and just get it done so that we can focus on the other stuff. And so that's the level of efficiency that would be very helpful, I think, for staff in particular in helping reduce that citywide burden. We have so much work to do without COVID. It's overwhelming. And so you add this and it's a huge lift for everyone. And it's not just our city, it's every city. And we have regular mayor's meetings and we're all feeling the same thing. And it is hard to figure out what to do to help. And it's hard to be able to, hard to say, well, let's get things done more efficiently. If it isn't a deal breaker on something, just agree with it and get it done. You can always go back and fix policy. And that's hard to do at times. But right now, I think it's the communication and that are probably the two most important things as far as the stress level for the people working at the city right now.
Well, just to say, if I could walk around with campaign literature, I can go door to door if you want to hand out flyers. This is so important. And I'll do whatever you need me to do on it,
Yeah.
It's what you do.
We might be able to do that because we do have some areas of the community that are harder to reach. And if we get to the point with the policy stuff that we can, develop literature and do more than just the online work, that would be a great thing to do. And there's no contact, just dropping lit on people's doors. Although I have heard from people that they don't want anybody going to the door, even if they're just dropping literature. So it's kind of that balance, but I do like that idea. So that's if people are willing to do that, please reach out to me. And I'm sure that we can get materials printed from the state to make that happen as well.
Yeah,
I like the idea. Councilmember Brudnicki, sorry.
So in regards to the fact that, I can't trust the federal government, I do want to qualify that with saying, I do trust the city's government. And I think that, for me now, all I'm going to go by is I'll look at the city, what they're recommending. I'm going to go by that. I'm not going to look at the state. I'm not going to look at the feds, just my city. And I think that's imperative for our businesses, that we have all the information they need to keep them on track so that they're not as confused as I am confused. So the city's done a great job. And I just want to qualify with, I'm going to focus on the city and go with their recommendation and forget the feds. That I'm done with that.
Thank you, Diane.
Jennifer Naplin has a question.
Yes, Councilmember Naplin.
Sorry, I'll keep this quick. I just wanted to say thank you, Director Thomas, for sharing your experience. And we had chatted before, and I was really blown away because the contact tracing is really how you smash the curve, as you stop the replication by tracing those contacts. And thank you for bringing up, Councilmember Langle, about our local option for testing. I have driven by it a few times and I don't see a line, and I've heard from other people that it's pretty easy to get in there and the results come back within, I believe, 2 or 3 days. I don't know if Councilmember Langle can give any feedback about how long it took, but it does seem pretty quick. And And then, you know, if you have to trace your own contacts and let people know and just really encourage them that there's testing available and not wait, because it's pretty concerning to me, because I was just looking, Snohomish County, for example, puts out their, I don't know what you call it, but it was showing about, oh, all of these cases have been contacted. But if the contact is basically, well, you don't really have to answer these questions, but I really want to be able to check off that I contacted you and be, you know, I mean, that's kind of the impression I'm getting about how your conversation went. So, you know, just the personal responsibility of get yourself tested, let people know you've been in contact with to get tested, which is what Director Thomas did. I think that at some point, just like Councilmember Brudnicki said, you know, I mean, you can't sitting back and waiting for someone to tell you what to do. It's very frustrating. And so I don't know, we're in crazy times. I do have a question for Mayor Okerlander, and also just thank you for being a great leader on this, encouraging mask wearing and all of that. It's super important. In any way we can help as council members, like you said, pass things out. Maybe people wouldn't feel comfortable with that. If you can think of something you'd like to help. I did have a question about our staff. So I know we have the staff members that often are off in the office. They are rotating through. And before, our crew that was often in the field or kind of going in and out the maintenance buildings, we had half of the crew at home, not able to do work in the field. But now we have quite a few satellite locations, so we don't have to intermix the crew. And so are we at full capacity on our maintenance crew being able to be out in the field and stay segregated, or have we got to go back to?
No, we're gonna keep that segregation up as long as it's feasible, because it's just not worth the risk. You know, and you know, you can see one person can get sick and not know where they got it from. And so, you know, and that's not on the individual, that's just the nature of this virus. And so I mean, like, for example, I haven't been actually into the office physically in, I think, 3 weeks, even though I was in for a few minutes to sign paperwork, because I'm working really hard to make sure I don't have any physical contact with any employees. And so, unless it's absolutely necessary. And so, you know, we're doing everything we can to continue to encourage those that can work from home to work from home. We're continue to have some technology challenges, which makes it a little more difficult. And we're continuing to try and iron those out as best we can. But there are times where people have to be in the same room for some things. And I think, you know, it's incumbent upon our employees too, to make sure their circles are tight. And I think, you know, everybody is really taking this seriously. So I really don't have any concerns about that. But I do worry that if somebody comes to work asymptomatic, that's part of the reason why we're doing the shifts, that it could spread unknowingly. And the reality is we don't know how well it travels through air, and we know our HVAC systems are old and outdated, and we don't know what's going from office to office. So, you know, there's a lot of logistical things. It's, you know, we're using a lot of space right now, but it's what we need to do. The unfortunate part is that I think people are starting to feel disconnected from one another. So we're trying to figure out ways to bring people back together. And that's, I think, probably the hardest part, is that social isolation from fellow employees can be really rough on folks as well. So we're working on trying to figure out some creative ways to address that. But the most important thing is the health and safety of the employees. And we're doing everything we can to make sure they're able to continue their work and also stay safe and healthy.
Okay. Thank
and
you.
then
I just wanted to double check that our in the field crew has been able to stay at capacity. We haven't had to send them home like we did at the beginning.
No, that would happen. You know, if we roll all the way back to phase 1, I suspect that there will be some different guidelines, because I think that they, you know, we're 6 months in. So there's more information about airborne transmission versus outdoors versus inside. And so they're able to assess those risks more. And I would hope that things like that are primarily outdoors or small groups could continue to go on, like construction and road maintenance and things like that. But it's not up to us. And so if we do roll back, we're going to have to make the assessment internally of how we handle that, because there's a lot of work that can't be done without 3 people on the job for safety.
Right.
We hope that that's not the case, but then we also hope that if we do roll back, there'll be some reasonable allowances so that we can continue to operate the city without putting people at risk. So it's so complex.
Thank
And
you. No, I just think it was so creative how you had them segregated, and I was really impressed with that, and I was hoping we were able to keep that up.
Yeah. And then Councilmember Iyer had a question about how you get tested at Family Drug, and I'm pretty sure Sean's posted this a couple of times, but you literally go onto their website and sign up. The other thing, I know we've advertised it as well, but worth bringing up tonight is that King County and Seattle are offering drive-through testing to anybody that wants it. You don't have to have symptoms. You literally drive through and get tested. And so they've been able to be pretty effective with that. And if you can't get into your primary care doctor, there are definitely options, which is good.
And I sent a link to council with the local Duval Drugs web stuff. So
Councilmember Lingle.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on that.
Thank you. This is
What
Matt.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I didn't have time. Thank you. I got the information.
Great. Here's what we had to do. We called Duval Family Drugs, and they said to go on a King County website. There was just a handful of questions you answered. Nothing, kind of like, what your age is or whatever. I mean, there were nothing questions. And then you got a voucher that you printed out, and you went down to Duval Family Drugs. You had an appointment time, all on your voucher. You go down there, you drive in, basically they do a sign and they tell you exactly what to do. And you eventually put your voucher in the pouch with your sample, and that's it. I mean, I was in and out of there in 5 minutes. It was so simple. And, but the registration is on King County website, and you're supposed to have your voucher because that's part of what they submit as part of the tracing. So that's how it worked. And like I said, I think, I want to say we put in our requests on a Wednesday, and, we were tested on Thursday and Friday. Super, super easy. Could we do like an advertising campaign? I mean, a banner that says "Protect Duval, wear your mask."
Yeah, we actually could. I like the banner idea. We've been pushing out as much as possible in social media and working with the chamber, providing the chamber with materials so the businesses can put it up. But now that the graduation stuff is over, that actually is probably a realistic possibility with CARES Act funding. So when Sean returns to the office, I'll put that bug in his ear. And hopefully nobody will vandalize it and tear it down.
Well, if it's up one of those up high ones, I mean, they'd have to really go up there. I bet you Councilmember Bernicki could come up with a great slogan. She's got that creative mindset,
Exactly. Thank you for that idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I like it.
I love it.
We know just where a banner goes. Any other feedback or questions for Mayor Okerlander? Councilmember Bernicki.
Yeah, I just had a question. If you're going to do testing through county, is there a cost to that, or is that covered?
Right now, it's all covered. Although the federal government is talking about reducing significantly testing funding, and so that would likely follow the states and the locals or individuals at that point. So hopefully that won't be the case, and we'll keep advocating for them to continue to fund it.
Jody Wyckoff.
I was just gonna say, when I went and got mine done, which was in Seattle, they asked for pictures of your insurance card, which they made, they'll attempt to charge, but it was either way. So that was just my experience.
Yeah.
And I did one of the drive-throughs. It was actually quite interesting and extremely efficient.
Well, we have a few minutes left. At the beginning, to be able to get Ogden Murphy Wallace in and out quickly and efficiently, I didn't do a good of the order. So I'll ask, does anyone have anything for the good of the order they would like to bring up before we adjourn our meeting? Councilmember Hoag.
I just want to say that I appreciate the recycling event. The Hoag family brought a heaping truckload of it's the scrap metal. And then I was so happy that you guys included the foam packing materials now. That is huge. I had like these big foam blocks that I was ready to throw in the dump, you know? So I'm just so happy that we do that. So thank you.
Thank you. I will relay that to Sherry because she manages that whole process. I used to, but I gave it to her. So we have a 4 by 4 by 8 foot block of styrofoam, but we figured they probably wouldn't want to take that. So
I just cringe at throwing things like that in the garbage, you know, and taking them to the dump. So it was so nice. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else good to the order? Well, with that, we'll adjourn and we'll see everybody over at our city council meeting in a few minutes. Thank you, everyone.